This clip is brought to you by Merrick Health, the premium telehealth network from Derek More Plates, More Dates. Get your blood work and hormone optimization done under the same roof. Enjoy this clip.
Algorithmic lifting programs are pretty cool because when you think of different sports, when you think of track and the level of intensity they have from session to session or jiu-jitsu or whatever, or all these different sports that are so variable, it seems like with powerlifting and weightlifting and pretty much any lifting kind of sport that it's rated by numbers, an algorithm could figure out how to help somebody get from point A to point B based off just purely off how they're progressing. It's interesting that lifting progress can be taken over by AIs itself.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see is like this is true of a lot of Olympic sports that are successful in countries that you wouldn't expect. Like China is successful in sports that you can train, right? There's one Chinese dude who's broken 10 seconds in the 100 meters. Which is an absolute feat, it's a miracle. It's insane. But those are sports where you must have certain physical qualities. Right? There's so few people that possess those specific genetic qualities to run like the 100.
I think that guy has the fastest 60 meters of all time.
Yes, he does. Yeah. I think there's like one white guy ever that's broken 10 seconds, which is insane. Right?
It's got to be more.
Yeah, it's like as a French dude, I think.
Oh yeah, Marcel, whatever.
Yeah, but sports you can train, like gymnastics, where it's highly technical and it's mostly a byproduct of training and the amount of training you can deliver to somebody. Weightlifting, these are sports that are dominated in these countries. And the same, I think, like you're saying, for something like an AI, where you can gather enough data to give you the prescriptions that are this is what's going to drive things forward. If we look at a lot of stuff, Prilipin's table, right? That was basically put together by, some research that was done on about 800 weightlifters. And they put together this table. Imagine you had 10,000 lifters and the data was actually accurate to the populations you're working with, which are regular people. Yeah. What kind of awesome data can you draw from that? What can you use in that? So I think over the next few years, we'll just see more of that stuff as things like AI become a service that you can actually just get involved in and purchase and actually use as a regular small company. You'll see a lot more of that start to actually trickle into more low-level sports.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's pretty much just kind of mathematics.
Yeah,
in terms of getting better at lifting.
Yeah, it's
I mean, in terms of getting better at maybe I guess certain sports get to be more difficult. Like when you get into something like soccer or baseball or basketball, those are how you train for those. It's it seems like it's all over the map. And then people have very specific ways that they think that you should. People have very specific ways that they think that you shouldn't. But in these sports, it seems like there is a mathematical equation to figuring out a way forward.
Well, you get the Moneyball stuff with baseball, right? And then it was that's not, people hated on it because it's not pure, right? Well, you get, the old scout's not fingering the testicles of every player, right? He's a good one, right? I don't know if that actually happens, but that's my only understanding of baseball. I had a strange coach growing up. That's what happened when I played baseball, T-ball. Probably got to edit that out.
Nope, that's staying.
Just open with that.
That explains a lot.
Max, why don't you see me in the ballroom later? Bring your bat. Oh my God. Anyways, so back to artificial intelligence. It's like the Moneyball stuff. It's you start to use whatever tools are available. So you can start to analyze what's the best strategy for playing this. It's very similar in weightlifting or powerlifting where it's what are the principles we understand about training, right? Very simple things can be how do you manage fatigue? Well, after hard training sessions, you should do easier training sessions, right? And from a principle-based approach, you end up with a lot of very simple questions, how do you manage your fatigue? How do you overload? That require complex solutions because they're not as straightforward as they seem. It's how can we train as hard as possible without risking injury, but also not stepping over our own feet or stepping on our own feet, training maximum squats every single day. What's a smarter way to do that? Well, what about every other day? Okay, well, if we're doing it every other day, the next logical conclusion is, well, what about the volume we were doing on the off days? Well, we can add that to those press sessions. Then you start to ask, well, what if we had one day that was heavier and one day that was lighter? And then it's just like this constant like asking a simple question, then finding an answer, and doing that thousands of times to basically say, if this happens, like what are the most likely successful outcomes for the next thing? What's the probability of success with a different choice the next day of training, right? Or the next week, or like, how do we structure this? So that's where it's like, coaches do this because they've seen it a million times. You can just watch somebody walk in the gym and you know how they're going to respond. The first question I ask everybody as a coach when they walk in the gym, how do you feel? And it's not, I don't even care what the words they say. I'm listening for the body language and for like the tone. Like, I don't know, okay. Or like, oh, you feel great, you know? Or they just don't know. Or you watch their mood change as they start warming up. And so it's like, those are the things that like, well, what could we learn from just looking at all the logs and all the training they've done up to this point to make a similar judgment? And like, can we be correct about that? Or I like to say, I stole this from Elon, but like, be less wrong. Like, we just assume everything we're doing is wrong, but how would we be a little bit less wrong about it? How's the program less wrong today? Or, you know, how are we making this app better, or, you know, less wrong than it is?
Now, with all the people you guys see hitting PRs with an AI type, you know, program setup, how do you think that this is going to affect the foot on the ground coaches in gyms that are trying to work with athletes? Like, do you think that, because overall this is going to move it forward, because now most people who couldn't get a coach can work with an AI and hit PRs. But in the grander scheme of things, will coaches just need to be there for eyes on technique? Or is there going to be, like, how's it going to evolve, you think?
I mean, the goal is to grow weightlifting, right? Mm-hmm. The bigger weightlifting is, the better it is for everybody, right? So if the sport grows, then that's the number one thing. Yeah. Coaches are necessary. There's no replacement for a coach, because, you know, you could have great technique, you could train perfectly. Then you're at the meet, what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. Who are you going to turn to behind you? And like, you have to trust that person and believe in them, right? I tell this story because this is kind of exemplifies what a coach is. My coach, Steve Goff, there was 3 guys. It was me and 2 other guys that trained together. And we rented this apartment in Bozeman, Montana. That's where I grew up. So it'd be like fucking 20 below in the garage that we trained at. There was no heat. And me and the other 2 guys, one of them was kind of this kid who was always like, kind of like talking about like going on missions and like, I'm gonna be like James Bond, right? Kind of like, you know, like, okay, whatever. And you know, we would train, and our coach was a Marine, and he was this like super hardcore, hard charging kind of guy, ex-cop in San Francisco. But he would always be like, well, why don't you just join up, like, you know, join the service. And he'd be like, oh yeah, I'm going to. So one day, the kind of heart and soul our coach put into us was like unbelievable. And so he like took this kid, and him and the other coach took him to the Navy recruiter, dropped him off, and said, you got to sign up. Like, they just dropped him off there, like, sign up. And he did. Then he went into Buds, and he graduated first in his class. Then he became like SEAL of the Year. Then he became a sniper. Then he became a sniper instructor. And so this dude is like one of the most, you know, like legit badass dudes in the world. Like, you don't know who he is, right? Just a guy who works on this in the teams. But he did all of that because our coach was always there for him, and always like talking to him on the phone and emails, and like even to the day up until like a month or 2 before he passed away, he was like the glue that held together 50 or 60 guys from around the country that would like, he would send emails out to people and talk and communicate. And like, he was the kind of guy that was like, you believed when he told you could like run through a brick wall. And so like, that's something you can't replace. No one's trying to replace that. You're not trying to like, you know, use a computer or use a clever thing to do that. You need that. You have to believe in yourself. You have to find somebody who actually like really, really cares about you. And that's what a coach is to me, is like someone who cares about your goals more than you do, or as much as you do, because they're going to be there every time. I would talk to him. He would call me. He would call me on the phone before I would drive to go train with him. And we talked for like an hour. Then I would drive for 50 minutes to go train with him. And then we train for 6 or 7 hours. And then the next day, the same thing every day. And I found out later, he would do this with everybody. He was on the phone or emailing like probably 100 people on a regular basis, just like he was that guy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I see it as like what we want to try to build is tools, right? His ability to get people to believe and to motivate them could maybe have been augmented a bit by having tools that could do something more. Be like, hey, here's a better decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe try this tomorrow, or maybe this is a better exercise, right? Where it's not like we're replacing that person, right? Because you have to have somebody in your life like that as an athlete to get through it. But from a standpoint of like, what is the math problem? We can solve that, try to solve that as much as we can, and then bring somebody in and make a pairing of like an athlete and a coach and a system that can actually generate, fantastic results.
Hey guys, if you like this clip, go ahead and comment down below and let us know what you liked about it. All right. Share this with a friend. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. And also, we are on Reddit and Discord. All that's down below. All our sponsors and everyone that supports us down below there too. So you can get whatever you like from us. All right. Peace.